Well, Andy, once again, we find ourselves, you and me, we're the ones who run DTLT today. Nobody else loves it like we do.
We've got the endurance, apparently. We've got the staying power. We love DTLT.
That's what it is.
The rest of the people in our organization,
they may like it, but they don't love it.
Exactly.
So
Jim Groom's back in New York City.
Yep. And he's got a presentation today at 6 o'clock all about DS-106 Radio that's going to be broadcast at DS-106 Radio. As far as I understand, it's also going to be broadcast on our video channel, so DTLT Today.
Oh, cool.
So if folks go to dtlttoday.com/live, they'll be able to watch it live, but it will also be archived and recorded and that kind of thing.
And that's at 6.
That's at 6 o'clock today. Grant Potter, Dr. Garcia, Mikhail, Jim, and Michael Branson Smith.
Cool.
All together on that.
Man, that's an illustrious panel.
It is, yeah.
And anything could happen, I'm sure. So tune in at 6 o'clock tonight.
It's a lot of beautiful people.
Exactly. Now, I feel kind of different today. I feel like I'm being broadcast in a completely new
Fresh
way.
and new, isn't it?
I almost feel like my hard drive has been upgraded.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we have a brand new laptop running Wirecast.
No way!
We do, yeah. So the IT folks brought it by, so we've been in the process of getting our own kit and everything, so we have the camera and everything else, but the laptop was one of the remaining pieces, and it's got a 7,200 RPM hard drive in it.
So we're faster today.
There you go. So
I feel faster.
And our
maybe it's the Dr. Pepper that I'm drinking, and not anything else.
And to really geek out, our Thunderbolt drive is on the way at some point. So I think we've got 3 or 4 weeks to wait for that, but that would be exciting. The Lacey Thunderbolt drive.
So DTLT has its own kit, and we can once again. Thank you, Kathy Derricky. Thank you, College Relations, University Relations,
for so long. Yeah.
For really letting us. Well, we've tried to push the envelope. We've tried to push it as far as we can, and it's been really obviously we've had a lot of fun with it. So
and what's exciting now is we can actually start going into the classrooms, planning out how to actually use this thing, because it's going to be ours. This is our stuff now, so we can actually feel free to go out around the campus and start playing around with things in a new way.
Yeah. Did we get a backpack, by the way?
It's on order.
On order. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
As far as I understand.
Because the backpack is critical to it being a
critical to it being mobile. Yeah. Exactly. Understood. So.
And I've got this sheet of paper on my knee.
I don't often give you notes, but today there are notes. There will be a quiz at the end.
And by the way, just so that. One of the classic things that you need to do for TV is print the stuff out on like blue paper as opposed to white, because white will really kind of like blow out the exposure on a given show.
This man is just full of tips.
I am a font,
I tell you,
of information.
A fount?
That too.
Are you held
So
out?
what is this? What is this stuff on this sheet of paper?
Well, today, as you may see from your Twitter stream, is Educause. So Educause has started up in Philadelphia, and their keynote presenter this year was Seth Godin, who I have a back and forth
the bald guy
with the bald guy, as EdTech Hulk on Twitter said. And Seth is a marketing person, but he typically has some interesting things to say about various markets. And whether you want to believe it or not, higher ed is a market. It's something that you're selling to students, the idea that they should go to college and that a university education is valuable. So he had some interesting things to say. Gardner Campbell, who is not always on Twitter, comes and goes, but we love him, and he was just hitting them back and forth right there throughout the keynote, letting us know what was going on. I didn't realize that there may or may not have been a live stream. I think there was a live stream that we could have been watching, but these tweets were just as good. So I thought that they would be some good fodder for discussion for us here.
We always know when Gardner's at a conference.
Yeah.
So it's... Oh, hey, there's a hashtag there to look at.
Yeah, and I've probably...
Edu11 or something like that.
Yeah.
And speaking of marketing, and this is somewhat relevant to Mary Washington at this point.
Yeah.
But this first one is the college industrial complex compared to Revlon. Mass marketing and branding makes us average. We just went through a brand new marketing campaign, or a new branding, if you will.
Yeah.
Mary Washington is the place where great minds get to work.
Yeah.
Is it the place?
I think
it's where great minds
get to work. Yeah.
And it's a brand.
Right.
And I think all of us in DTLT have a healthy skepticism of branding and marketing.
Yeah.
When it comes to education, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to kind of like the brand and that phrase. It was done in a fun, playful way.
Yeah.
You were one of the people who got to hold up one of the signs, and maybe we can link to the video that exists for that. But I like it not only because it has kind of a dual meaning. It's kind of a place where students come to learn great stuff, but it's also refers to kind of you and I, in that it's a great place to work.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to kind of explore and to contribute to the institution and that sort of thing. So as a branding term, I kind of like it. And then
I think one of the dangers that it speaks to is focusing too much on your brand and less on what you actually have to offer.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for your focusing more on the message than on the content of what you actually are saying.
Yep.
So how you say it versus what you're actually saying. And we have an entire department who's focused specifically on that. What we say, it's university relations, and they manage everything in terms of this marketing aspect. And as I said again, like it or not, you got to market yourself, because it's not exactly cheap to go to school. Luckily, we're a public institution, so it's a bit cheaper than the private schools. But at the same time, you have to sell yourself for a specific reason. And so that's where things like branding, I think, can sort of get into this gray area of what are you actually saying? Tell me what I'm actually going to experience by going to Mary Washington. I think UMW does a really good job of it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think his message there is more, don't focus too much on the brand itself. Don't spend too much time branding yourself in lieu of focusing on what you actually are and figuring out what you're doing.
Yeah, and
to stay afloat.
I think we live in this age of the social media and the places where students kind of get their message out is kind of doing an end around of the brand and the marketing anyway. The stuff that our students are doing out there gets exposed in such a unique way, and we live in this time where it's easy for that stuff to get out there. And DS 106 is a great example of this. It's this idea of there's some really interesting stuff going on without any kind of brand at Mary Washington, and I hope that becomes part of our brand, if you will, or at least a representation of it. But we'll see what does the best. There's a lot of neat stuff happening at Mary Washington in terms of even construction projects and things like that. We've talked about the what was known as the Convergence Center and some of the other things that are going on. And we've got this flurry of construction, so there's this kind of flurry of activity at Mary Washington. And there's even people that want to kind of keep the old way. There's a building that's being torn down, and we've mentioned that before.
Right.
So there's the marketing, and then there's the reality. And I think in this day and age, the reality will kind of win out to frame what Mary Washington does. So it'll be interesting, kind of what does win out.
Yeah.
So, and as you said before we started, each of these could be a show of its own. So I don't want to take too much time on each one. But.
Well, he talked about sort of the revolutions that can rock these the industrial complex, as it were, and rock the boat in the terms of that. And one of them, for him, the biggest one, I think he was saying, was cheap connections. The fact that most students are going to have a phone in their pocket with access to the web, it breaks open all these possibilities and things. And for the longest time, the university, sort of what they've been selling is that access to information. It is that connection that they've been selling. So now the students themselves are, the way he phrased it was that the students have that product already. So,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that universities that's the product that universities are selling. It probably has been at some point for certain institutions, but I think we've got to move beyond the idea that information has a cost applied to it, and that we're the keeper of it.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I constantly think about or worry about is that a university is just one thing, and that there aren't several different types, and even the profit versus nonprofit kind of argument,
right.
And what people are getting out of their education, and especially higher education, and it's even the discussion of like DIY kind of thing. It's like there's lots of ways at this, and you can go get your degree without kind of having any interaction socially or whatever, and get this sheet of paper. The thing that makes Mary Washington unique, and I think always will, is that it's small. You have access to the instructors,
right.
And there's that huge value there. You could go to schools that are much bigger, pay lots more money, and not ever have access to those great minds like we do here at Mary Washington.
Yeah.
And that's the value, and that's the kind of unique position that we're in, and we do market that. That is kind of one of those touchstones of what the value of Mary Washington is, and the idea of cheap connections. It's relatively cheap to go here in terms of being a bargain, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's a cheap connection that students should take advantage of.
Gosh, I'm just going through all these. There's so many. Jumping down, one of the things that he actually said, one thing that's kind of cool is that he had a Q&A session. And a lot of keynoters, they'll come up, they'll say their piece, and they'll walk away, and you never got a chance to question or challenge them on
I'm always
anything.
Suspicious of keynoters that don't have a Q&A.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
don't talk to me, don't question me about anything.
Yeah.
So
don't push back on anything that I said. So
he did that, and one thing he had to say to someone in terms of blogs is that he felt like everybody from the age of 10 forward should have a blog, not from a standpoint of that they necessarily have something to say to the world that the world would want to read, but just for, as we've called it before, narrating your process, to sort of talk about why you make the decisions that you're making as you go through your education.
Well, and it's interesting because I have a son who's almost 9, and he does have a blog, but he's not even at the place where he can like type fast enough or get those thoughts out in any way. But I want to encourage him to put something up there. He just wants to like embed video games, flash games in his website. So that's where he is. But in a way, having those there is kind of doing that reflection that I think is valuable. For him to say, oh, remember that video game? Because he's just totally into video games, and I really don't have many restrictions on him. He's fully engaged. He's problem solving. He's huge into Minecraft these days. Yeah. And so I think we need to set up a separate Minecraft section for him to do this. But I absolutely agree that from 10 on, and again, not to really get him to do a whole lot of detail, but just for there to be this time capsule that he can go back and he can look at when it comes to time to it, just to say, this is the stuff that I was doing when I was 10 years old, and look how far I've come, or look at the different directions that I've gone in. So.
And I wonder if the typing is prohibitive, if maybe he couldn't make videos, like if he couldn't talk in front of a camera. Which is another interesting from a nostalgic standpoint. Like if I was able to go back and look at my 12-year-old or 10-year-old self talking to a camera about what was interesting me at the time.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because you know how much I talk about screencasting and have kind of done some of the screencasting with tutorials and that sort of thing. I swear to God, he literally wakes up in the morning and he's been watching these straight through. There's this guy who narrates the building of the Minecraft space. His name is Co's Quest. Okay. If you look up on YouTube, Co's Quest, he has like in the neighborhood of 200 videos that are screencasts, anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour, I guess. And he watches those just straight through. Goes from one to the next. It's on a playlist on YouTube. So I can see my son kind of doing these same types of videos and the stuff that he wants to do. And so he's been asking me about screencasting software.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It really is kind of amazing to watch an 8-year-old, because he's not quite 9,
Right.
talk about how can we record the screen, Dad? And I've got my little video camera to do that, but it's not quite. I can't quite get the resolution. So is there a way around that? And it's like, boy, that's a chip off the old block.
Exactly.
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 So I think we can help him with the screencasting, and blogging doesn't have to be writing. It can be screen recordings. We could also get him some dictation software and see if the dictation software can aid that kind of that narration that he wants to do. So I'm fully behind that one.
Yeah. You mentioned DS106, and one of the slogans at DS106 is "Make art, damn it," and it's kind of nice to have some validation in that. Again, like I said, I don't know if Gardner Campbell was pulling some of this stuff or these were exact quotes from him, but in terms of this idea that higher education fits these molds of the industrial complex, that they're creating workers that have a job. You have a job here at the university. You're saying you don't have a job, you have a platform to make art.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I want the university to be, is a place where you come and decide, and we're here to help you make art, to make something.
Make stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Come out of here with, and that's been the neat thing since we've been in this organization of DTLT, and since Jim came on board ages ago now, it seems, and we've kind of gelled as a unit. That has been our focus with faculty, and one of our faculty, Jeff McClurkin, has been right in tune with us. Steve Greenlaw as well. But the idea that student projects create something that the world can see. The Historical Markers Project is always one that we talk about, where it's a direct value to the community when they get out there and they see what the students have done. Take historical markers and further the information that you get about historical places in the Fredericksburg area. That's it's kind of like your state institution and how it gives back. What's your taxpayer dollars going for? And not that's I always hate that to be the ultimate goal, but for some people it comes down to that.
Well, and you even spoke to the idea of access, and the access to the educators is one thing, but the access to technology and tools to be able to create this art is another thing. And it's one thing to say, well, I can get a degree in my house online, but coming from an art background, the ability for me to learn how to develop film in a studio was an amazing thing. Yeah. I wasn't going to get to do that on my own, again, without having to shell out quite a bit of money, and still I'd have to be teaching myself if that were the case. So you've got an environment where you can pick your passion, and the tools and the educators are all surrounding you, helping to prop you up and help you out along the way.
And we were talking, Martha and I, we were talking a little bit about this before, about the Convergence Center, and there's somewhat of a pushback in the sense of what the Convergence Center is for. Shouldn't we be better spending this just creating more classrooms, because classroom space is tight on this campus? But one of the things that I do want to make sure that we are pushing forward, and the idea that we're pushing forward, is this is going to be a place where students will be able to use the latest technology and create stuff. They'll be directly connected to the library on one side. They'll be able to take all that research material and come to us and work at an editing machine that has Final Cut or Adobe Premiere, and have tutelage from us, and make their web pages look good. Right. Do some Illustrator stuff or whatever,
right.
And learn those skills as a part of their history degree or as a part of their sociology degree that they're ultimately going to leave here with. And really the important thing is for them to kind of make their own stuff and put their unique spin on whatever their discipline is. And the digital commons is going to be the place for them to come and do that stuff.
Well, because I think more and more so, we're going to see that it's not just that piece of paper that they come away with that's going to guarantee them the job. It's going to be this portfolio of work. It's going to be not just about where did you go and did you complete the work required of you. It's going to be what have you done, and wow, so I think in terms of open blogging about your process and a portfolio of work of amazing things that you've done, that's what's going to get you the amazing jobs, and that's sort of what we're here for, to help people out with it, as opposed to just saying, checking off the boxes, hand them a piece of paper, you completed your study.
Sure. And when we get back to the branding sometimes with Mary Washington, I think and some of this stuff is implied in what Gardner has talked about, and I'm sure what Seth has talked about is this idea that you're kind of marketing yourself to be the best at one thing, like a university education. And I think we need to emphasize really how different Mary Washington is. And I do like the one quote on here about the world is getting weirder. Celebrate the edge cases and outliers. And we've got examples of that right in this office sometimes of the edge cases and the outliers. The idea that education is not this one thing. It's what you make of it, and you put your own unique spin. And if it's a crazy spin, all the better. And
I love what Dr. Garcia said on Twitter in response to that. She said that when the outliers find themselves in this network, the center shifts. So, it's like these edge cases have always been out there, and now it's easier for them to find each other and make it the new norm.
Right. So. Well, I mean, we've been pushed in all kinds of different directions because of, a lot of times just because of lack of funding. And we've been able to move forward with a TV station because, we found some inexpensive things that couldn't be done even in other ways. And, we're an outlier in that sense, and pushing in that direction just makes it all the more valuable. It's how the innovation happens. We're free enough to kind of experiment with this stuff, and push the envelope with it, and it creates new and exciting things, and it makes it makes it a dynamic environment to work in. So,
absolutely. I know we're running out of time, but I do want to cover this last one here because it speaks to online education and the future of it in particular. He talked about the future of online education raising the quality of peer-to-peer interaction, and that it wasn't just about broadcasting lectures. And that's something that I think we see more and more is that there's this danger of taking the existing model of the lecture classroom and interpreting it in an online space. And Jim and Martha have spoken about the online learning initiative that Mary Washington's a part of in looking at this and trying to think of things differently, but getting that interactive component, the fact that you've got things like, Twitter and other tools that can help you sort of make this a two-way conversation, as opposed to just this broadcast mechanism of I am the instructor passing along the fruits of my labor to you as in an online space that has so much more potential.
Yeah, I mean, faculty realize that certainly back in the day when we didn't have these technologies, it was the place that you went to. The faculty member was one of the few people, in a sense, that had the information that the students wanted. But now that information, each university now is kind of accessible in these unique ways. And to put together all those pieces creates a much more valuable experience. And if a faculty member doesn't just kind of spout their version of a particular discipline and pulls in those different pieces, it makes it so much more a valuable experience for the student. And I think the idea of where a faculty member won't get up and just do their lecture in front of a video camera. They'll use these other materials. They'll use Twitter to kind of take in calls, to kind of get that interactive television experience in a way is going to be much more valuable. And I'm hoping that we've got some faculty that will want to do that and want to participate.
Yeah, and Jim and I have been talking to Mike Caulfield about this idea of, speaking to peer-to-peer interaction, this idea of like ed tech chat roulette, where, you could sort of poll a body of students on something, and then you could pair them up automatically based on their answers and have them do a video chat with each other. Right. And if that could get to an automated point where I answer a question and then he says, and now it's time to discuss, and I'm paired with someone who answered the question differently, and we discuss why we both answered that's a powerful thing for learning, as opposed to just all of us sitting here, or even so much as polling us and then going, oh, well, that's interesting, 25% of the class don't get this, see me after class, or something, like that. It's a lot more powerful for me to talk directly to another student.
Well, and it's always been the type of education that I've advocated, in this idea of this situated learning, or this situated cognition. It's that you're in a community of practice, and out in the real world, you don't have that instructor necessarily. You're working with your peers in your particular discipline, and you're going to instruct each other by the directions, the kind of the small turns that you make as you go forward, and to question each other about that, and question each other to see if either one of you are not getting it, or whether, and then that's where the instructor comes in. He doesn't have to be the end all be all. He can be there as they say, the guide on the side, to kind of guide the discussion, or just say, here's where to go to get more information.
He's facilitating it. Yeah.
So.
Well, I hope that we haven't completely butchered this keynote with our own
this is probably
thoughts.
Completely not what they had intended. No, I think we got it on the right
when
track.
Seth Godin watches our episode and has some problems, he can certainly contact us directly. We'd love to have him on, actually. So
exactly. Yeah, if you're out there, Seth, feel free to comment.
Right. Thanks for watching, folks.
Thanks.
See ya.